Welcome to The Drawing Board. I'm your host and in-house artist, Darren Leffler. If you're not familiar with The Drawing Board, here's a quick recap of what happens on the show. Every episode of The Drawing Board, I invite a guest from the comics and entertainment industry, and we get to learn a little bit more about what they do. And while we're learning about what they do, I'm also drawing them. Pretty fun, right? Well, my guest this week has done practically everything in the entertainment industry. He is a pianist and composer and producer, as well as a radio show personality, has won a Lifetime Achievement Award for his work, has had 28 solo recordings, and is a 5-time Grammy-nominated artist. Please welcome my guest, David Benoit. Hi, David. It's so nice to have you.
All right. Thank you, Erin. Nice to be here. Appreciate it.
So for the kids who may not know some of the terms I just used, because there was a lot of them, how would you describe what you do?
Well, I began my career as a jazz pianist, and later on, I learned about conducting and arranging and producing, and so that became a part of my career as well. And then about 9 years ago, I was asked to host a radio show, so I added radio personality to my resume. So that's K-Jazz Radio 88.1 here in Los Angeles, California.
Well, that is super cool. It sounds like you've done a lot. How long have you been doing this?
Well, pretty long time. I started professionally when I was 17 years old, so that was 40 some odd years ago. I've been at it a while.
That's really neat. Was this something that you always wanted to do? Like, did you know when you were a kid that you wanted to be a musician, or was that something you kind of figured out later on?
I think I always wanted to do it. I had a natural talent at the piano because I was never a classical pianist or a note reader, but I could play things by ear and write songs really at a young age. So I think when I was in high school, when I was around 16, that's when it was crystal clear that this is what I was going to do for a living. And so I just went for it, and I've been very lucky to have a nice, long, and really rewarding career.
That is really neat. So I can't imagine that writing music is easy. Can you walk us through the process of what that's like?
Yeah, I can give you a little idea. Writing music does require a certain discipline. For me, I don't usually wait for inspiration to strike because that may not ever happen. So I try to be disciplined about it, maybe get up in the morning, and usually it starts at the keyboard. Like I'll noodle something on the piano, and then I come up with a little melody, and then maybe I jot something down, and then I might record a demo into my computer, and then that demo eventually gets handed over to other musicians, and I kind of go back and refine it, and then I have a music software as well that I can notate things with. So it's a bit of a process. I think the hardest part is trying to always come up with original pieces, because I'll start to write something and I think, oh, that's already been written, or I already did that. How to come up with something new. So I just keep writing, and you have to really stay with it. The other thing I had read somewhere, someone saying once that whenever you write, you always think it's going to be that hit tune or that really special piece, and not to think of that. Just write something and let it be what it is. And so I try to now just make sure I'm always writing, and even if I don't think it's going to be my next hit record, at least I'm stockpiling songs.
Now, you've had a career for decades in the industry, which means you've seen a lot of changes come and go, which I can imagine was probably incredible to see happen. For you, though, what do you find is the hardest part of what you do for a living?
Well, I would say, if you ask me today, of course, the hardest part all of us artists are facing right now with the COVID-19 is opportunities to play live again, something we cherished and we just thought would always be there, live concerts, and they're not, and we don't know when they're coming back. So this has been a tough one for me. I think looking back to my career in terms of touring and all that, the toughest thing was certainly never being on stage. That's the fun part. The toughest thing were waiting in airports with flights being canceled or hotels not being ready, all of these things that happen that are out of your control the minute you leave your house to go on tour. All these, and I'm sure every artist has a story about a flight they missed, or this thing being canceled, or the the act ahead of you went on too long and they cut your set back. So all of these things that are out of your control, that's the hardest thing, is managing that, knowing that everything is subject to whatever happens outside. No matter how much you've practiced or prepared for a concert, you still have to deal with all these outside issues.
Now, I can't imagine that performing live is always the easiest task as well. For you, how do you find that you manage that? How do you feel like you get yourself into the zone where you can concentrate performing live?
It's a challenge, because when you perform live, you're bearing your soul to all these people. You don't know how they're going to react, if they're going to like what you do, or if they're going to be talking to their buddy while you're playing. That's the one thing that really, if there's anything that gets to me, if I'm playing to an audience and they're talking or they're, partying or something, and it's tough as a performer because you're just giving so much. So I try to just stay really, really focused. Backstage, I usually like to maybe have a couple of cups of black coffee just so I'm really amped up. And just really get out there and try to just, the other thing is having a really good band to play with so I can play off of them. And it helps me be in my comfort zone. Of course, having a great piano is a big part of it too. So as much as I can be in my comfort zone, have a great instrument, great band, then just try to have some fun and, rock and roll.
Now, your style is a very unique style. I've heard it multiple times, and I am a huge fan of your music.
Oh, thank you.
For you, where did that style come from? Because a lot of people tend to attribute their style to a certain person or thing that they learned about growing up. So for you, where did that inspiration come from?
Multiple sources. When I was young, there were a lot of artists I listened to, starting with Henry Mancini, the great composer. I liked his beautiful melodies. And then I got really into Brazil 66 because I like that Brazilian rhythm. So I've always liked catchy rhythms and super melodic melodies, real positive melodies. I've honestly never been into out jazz. That's never been my thing. I like the jazz that you can listen to and enjoy. So artists like Ramsey Lewis, Sergio Mendes, Bill Evans, Oscar Peterson, of course, even classical artists like Leonard Bernstein, Aaron Copland, Andre Previn. Those were all big influences. Even the gentleman that scored the James Bond themes, that John Barry, who wrote all those great James Bond scores, that was a big influence. So all of those influences, musicians that, and I just boil it down to something really simple: music that gives you chills. If it gives you chills, then it's good, and it feels right. So those are my primary influences.
Those are amazing. I don't blame you at all. Those are really, really interesting people to take as inspiration. For you, though, when you started out your career, because it sounded like you started out fairly young, was there a piece of advice you wish you would have known when you started out compared to what you know now?
Yes, that's a really good question. I did start out really young, and it's kind of like jumping into a swimming pool in the deep end and not really knowing how to swim and figuring it out when you're at the bottom of the pool. So I never had a music education. I dropped out of college after one semester and hit the road. And so if I look back, I wished I had a more knowledge of music going into what I did, because I made so many mistakes. And, I just got into a situation where I got in trouble because I didn't know enough about music or thought I knew, right? I thought I was Mr. Joe Cool, but I wasn't. And so looking back, I wish I'd studied a little more, maybe practiced a little more, but certainly grateful for having the career that I've had.
It sounds like it's been an incredible career. Are there any moments that kind of just stick out in your mind, like that's something that you're always going to remember, that's like a milestone for you?
There's a few, if I can share with you. One of the big moments was in the Philippines in 1981, and I had a hit record over there. And here I was still playing in bars and just struggling. Meanwhile, over there I was a superstar. So I'll never forget getting to the airport with all the paparazzi and being whisked away in a limo, the whole bit. And large concerts with full orchestra. So that was one incredible experience in kind of the beginning of my touring career. And then Recently, just a few years ago, I had a chance to conduct Beethoven's Ninth Symphony with 400 singers and a 70-piece orchestra at Walt Disney Concert Hall. And gosh, that was truly a highlight of my career.
Well, that sounds absolutely amazing. I can't imagine what that was like.
And I'll tell you, at the rehearsal, I got kind of nervous. I mean, it was such a big undertaking to conduct Beethoven. Here I'm the jazz guy, but I was going for it. And there was this one, I got to almost at the end of the piece, and there's all these singers and musicians, and then I messed up one bar of music. I conducted it wrong, and the orchestra got upset. And so that night, I was up all night studying that music note for note. And then I came to the rehearsal, conducted that bar perfectly, and the orchestra applauded me, and it was such a relief. But yeah, I mean, I again, just getting into it without really having that musical background, I really had to do a lot of studying and make sure I was properly prepared.
So it sounds like education you feel is definitely an important factor in doing anything musically. Do you feel like people should have to go to college for it, or is it something that should be done kind of like on a person basis, depending on how they work?
Well, I think nowadays, especially now, I think they really should go to college because now there's so many more jobs that are in the more tech-oriented part of music, like scoring for gaming is a huge career. And you do need to have some knowledge, a knowledge base to really compete in that environment. Back in the old days, there were a lot of jazz clubs. There were hotels that had 5-piece bands all across the country. So you could just make a living just being a good musician, not even a great, pretty good player. Now it's very tough as it's really tightened up. And so I think the musicians that are going to be the most successful, certainly they have to have the talent. But it's kind of a complete package of schooling and talent and ambition. But I think the education part is really important nowadays, just to compete in the kind of marketplace we're in now.
Well, speaking of competing, that's a very good point you bring up, because this is something I always like to touch on in each of the episodes with my guest. There is such a spirit of competitiveness that's bred in the industry today, whether it be in acting, in art, in writing, no matter what it is, there's some form of competition. Do you feel like it's more important to have that competitive spirit, or to kind of build a group of fellow creatives who you can work with and get to know better?
I think the creative spirit is really important. It's certainly motivated me, and in my early days, and maybe I had a bit of an ego, but I was always trying to think, well, I got to be better than this guy, and I got to work harder. And I think that shouldn't be everything, but it should be an important part. And it's important to work together as a team as well. But the music business, like anything in entertainment, is tough, and there is so much competition. There's so many people that want to be in this business. Of course, right now it's really tough because there's really not much of a business at this point. I mean, everything has been shut down, and so it's more important than ever for younger players to be studying and be really prepared for once things do come back. And I think that they will, and I think they'll hopefully come back better than ever. And maybe our audiences will really appreciate live music, having it being sort of taken away from them when it finally does come back. I think it's going to be great.
Now, you have had 28 solo recordings, and that is absolutely incredible. But I can't imagine, because for us, it's so deceptively simple when we just hear something on the radio or on TV. It just seems so easy that it's there. What's the process that goes behind a recording?
Well, let me first say it's actually 34 albums. Probably we're reading.
Wow.
It's been a few since then. So it's up to 34. And you're right. You hear a song on the radio, and yeah, it sounds easy, but it's a real process. And for me, it just so happens that I just love making records. I love the process. And I was reading Woody Allen's new biography, and he was saying it's almost like he likes the process of making films more than the films themselves. And once he's made the film, he doesn't ever actually watch it. it's a process. I'm kind of the same way. I never really listen to my own CDs. I mean, I listen to them when I'm making them. I might listen to them 1,000 times to make sure they're, before they get out into the marketplace, everything is just right. But once they're out there, they're out there. And then, and on that note, I've had many times where we'll go to a dinner party or something, and the host or hostess will think, "Oh, David Benoit's coming over. Let's play his CD. That'll make him happy." And like, no, turn that off. You know. Once it's done, it's done. And but it is the process that I really love. I love starting with coming up with all the ideas at home and working with the computer. And then there's nothing like that first day in the studio where you actually hear the playback of the live musicians playing the music. And I just can't tell you what a thrill that is. And I just hope I can continue to keep making records.
That is super cool. And I can't imagine what an experience that is.
Yeah.
You've had such an amazing career, though. And I can't imagine, though, that you eat, sleep, and breathe everything music. There's got to be other things that you like, because I've heard from a lot of kids that they don't think it's really welcomed in the industry to like things outside of your job. So for you, what's something that you're a fan of?
I'm a fan of tennis.
Oh.
I'm still a regular tennis player every week. It's more doubles than singles nowadays. And I injured my back the last time I played tennis, so I have to be careful. Yeah, it's better now. It's healing. So tennis is one thing. I like getting on my bike and bike riding. My other interest, I'm very interested in contemporary architecture. And I've studied the work of John Lautner and Frank Lloyd Wright and Richard Neutra and the Bauhaus movement that started in Germany. I could speak quite a bit on that subject because it's just something that fascinates me. Having built my own house and designed it.
Wow.
Yeah, that was another little side thing. And so, and another thing that ever since I was a kid, I've always wanted to do. So we had that opportunity to build a custom home, and just really enjoyed having that.
That is amazing. And even cooler that you built and designed your own home. That's a lot of work.
Yeah. It was, and we had an architect, and he was probably a little frustrated with us because he would come in with a design that I'd redraw it, and then my wife would redraw. You know, she got involved in it too. So we got involved in the actual planning and architecture of the house, and we'd go up there every day to watch it getting built. And you know, it was something that we really couldn't afford to do, but we did it anyway. So it was such a great project.
That sounds like a lot of fun too.
Yeah, it was. Just really interesting to see the house come together and see the vision happen, and someone that's, you know, loved open houses and watched houses getting built. It's still a fascination of mine. We in fact sold our home about a year ago. It was a very large house, and after our daughter graduated from high school, we downsized. So, but I still drive by and look at houses. It's a hobby of mine. I find it to be a very peaceful respite from music. Just look at houses and why did they change the front door? Why was this window casing not matching this one? And I'll just, and in fact, I'll even look at houses and give them grades and say, well, that's an A, oh, that one's an F, you know, because I have my own personal taste about architecture. So it's kind of fun.
That's really cool. And it's also very good to know that it's totally okay to have hobbies outside of our job.
Yes, it is. And it's important, Erin, because our jobs can be all consuming, and especially in this 24-hour, 7 days a week thing, you know, when we don't go into the office, a lot of us, we work from home now. So you got to learn how to shut it off. Okay, you know, enough. I got to get on my bicycle and look at some houses. It gets my mind off of music, because as fun as it can be very stressful because you're worried about, well, my agent didn't call me, or you look on Facebook, this guy's doing this concert, or this guy's doing this recording, and I'm not doing this, or I wasn't called for that. And so, take a break, look at houses, you know, or play some tennis. It's important.
You can obviously tell that you've had a lot of practice with this, and especially because you've had such a long career, I can imagine you have so many different bits of information that you've learned that's helped you get to such an amazing career. One of the things that I love touching on, though, is because a lot of people now get rejections in the industry. We all face them no matter what branch of the industry we're in. And a lot of times people take that personally. So for kids out there who are just getting into the industry or that are scared of facing rejection, should they be worried about it, or should it be more like a learning experience for them when they do get one?
Well, of course, it should be a learning experience, not to worry too much, because at all levels of music, we face rejection. And honestly, that has been the hardest thing for me personally to deal with, because people say, oh, don't take it personally. Of course we take it personally. But that's okay. Take it personally. But at the same time, don't worry about it too much, because it happens to everybody. I don't care who you are. There's always some, even if you're John Williams that wrote Star Wars, I'm sure he has a bunch of stories about when he was rejected for this, or I don't know any of those stories, but he must have them. But we all have stories, and that's why I enjoy reading artists' biographies, because you can always find stories. Even when I was reading Woody Allen's latest biography and the stuff he was rejected for, and we all go through it. So there's comfort in knowing, for young artists, if you're up for Nintendo called you to score their latest game, and someone else beat you to it, and you didn't get the gig. Okay, just keep going. It happens to everyone. It's not the end of the world. So that's really my advice from someone that has had a lot of rejection and continues to get rejection. I mean, it's just a thing we all have to live with, and that's a good point. I'm glad you brought that up.
That is really good to know, and I think that's a very important thing, because a lot of times we can feel like, this is our fault. We should have gotten this. We should have been better. But everybody gets them, and it's just something that we can learn from in the long run.
Yeah, exactly.
So I can imagine with the career you've had a chance to work with a lot of people and a lot of different projects, and it can be, absolutely amazing. For you, though, is there anything that you haven't gotten to done, or anyone that you haven't worked with that, say, is your dream project?
That's a really good question. I've always wanted to write a Broadway musical, and I've started a couple. I collaborated years ago about a musical about Marilyn Monroe that didn't really go anywhere. And recently, I've been working with a very well-known cartoonist on another musical idea, but our timing hasn't been too good, because with COVID now, we just had to put it on ice. So that's one dream, of writing a Broadway musical. I've always thought that one day I would love to be in front of the New York Philharmonic. That would be cool. And guest conduct the New York Philharmonic. That would be a wonderful experience for me. And I'm just trying to think. Maybe I would love to get asked to score another movie. I love scoring films. I haven't scored one in a long time. The industry's changed so much, but that's certainly always thinking that there's always a chance, someone here's something I did and says, I want you to score my next movie. So if you're a producer or director and you're listening, I love to
Call him.
and by the way, I love animation, and having scored a lot of the original Charlie Brown television shows for CBS, that was such a great experience for me. So certainly, that would be great.
That's something I actually wanted to touch on, because not a lot of people can say that they have been able to work on something that's so loved worldwide. What is that like, knowing that you are a part of something that's touched thousands upon thousands of kids' lives?
It's pretty weird. And I recall the first meeting I had with Charles Schultz, the creator of Peanuts and Charlie Brown. And being a fan and reading the comic strip from the time I was 8 years old, I can't tell you how that meeting felt, to be actually sitting, having a cheeseburger. Charles Schultz, and right off the bat, and I said, Mr. Schultz, and he said, stop, call me Sparky. And I've told this story a lot to my audiences, but boy, to call him Sparky, this is the man, like you say, that gave this joy to the world, and one of the most beloved creators of comics ever. And you're looking right at him. He's this very nice gentleman, and I'm saying Sparky. It was just a mind blower. And what I discovered, which and I still keep in touch with the Schultz family and the Mendelssohn family, is how incredibly nice they are. What nice people, what generous, nice people. They all of them live up in Northern California. And it's just been one of the really beautiful experiences of my life that I was so lucky to be able to get in with that family and write music and create music for them, following the footsteps of Vince Guaraldi.
That is really amazing, and I can't imagine working with a legend like that. Must have been absolutely incredible, especially for them to call you their nickname. That's absolutely insane.
So I must have gotten in his good graces. That was really, really awesome to be able to do that.
Well, I have a couple more questions for you, and these ones are fun ones because these ones you just get to talk about stuff that you've done. Is there any projects you're currently working on or that you're just super duper proud of that you'd want to just talk about for a couple minutes?
There is one. There's a couple. One is I have a group of very young people. They're all young Asian musicians, and I have been promoting Asians in jazz for a long time. Being the conductor of the Asia America Symphony Orchestra, I've been looking for young Asian talent. My wife is Japanese, and my daughter is also from Japan. She's adopted from Hiroshima. So it's been a mission of mine. So I got together these young kids. They were all students of mine in the orchestra, and they're called the Young Asia Band, AJA. And we're working on our second video right now. We just started working on it, and we're going to be posting that pretty soon on my YouTube site. So that's one project I'm very proud of. I'm also working on a jazz album, but from home. So I've got about 4 tracks. I don't have a title for it yet. I mean, it may be just simply called At Home. And that's with my trio with Dan Schnell and Roberto Valli. And so we've been doing that remotely, collecting tracks. So that I'm kind of involved in making that happen. Plus, I continue to been working with our kids with the Asia America Youth Symphony. We're doing a few online projects as well, so we'll be making an announcement about that soon.
Those sound super duper cool, and I'm so excited to hear them when they come out. That's going to be absolutely incredible.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it should be fun.
Now, my last and favorite question that I ask, for any kid out there, even for young adults who are just getting into the industry, maybe they're starting a little bit later, what is the one thing you want them to walk away with from this?
That is a good question. I would hope they would be inspired, if they're creative, if they're in music, to continue to write music, to be creative, or even if it's not music, whatever field they're in, not to be too discouraged also with what's going on right now. It's tough, we're going to get through it. And the main thing is to just keep creating. And I know a lot of you are kind of stuck at home, but that's a golden opportunity to, whether you write music or you produce videos or whatever you do in the creative world of entertainment, to keep doing it and know that there's light at the end of the tunnel and there's lots of new opportunities coming up. So I hope that that could be the takeaway.
That is a great thing to walk away with, and thank you so much for sharing that. And now's my favorite part, where I get to show you what I was able to create off of you while you were talking.
I can't wait.
Hopefully it's not too scary, but that's something.
Oh, that's fun. I look like if I was in one of those Japanese animated, I might be the professor or something.
I love it.
So is there a way I could get a copy of that?
Yeah, I'm more than happy to send you a copy of it.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming on. It was an absolute honor to talk to you today and to get to learn from you. And thank you so much to everyone who tuned in. Again, I am your host and in-house artist, Aaron Leffler. Catch you next time on The Drawing Board.